Now remember, we're going to be uploading all of these model schedules to Macabacus for either us or for other people to download and use them to build financial models. So in order to facilitate that and really make it easier, we're going to mark all the connection points where the schedules connect to one another. Let's jump in, take a look at how that works. So to mark the connections between the schedules, we want a really bright color, one that pops so people notice it and they remember to make the connections between the schedules. Normally we use orange to mark partial inputs, but in this case, we're going to use the orange to mark these connections. Let's get started. So let's mark these connections together. If you can please hop down on your model over to these hyperlinks, we're going to need to connect these. So let's select all three hyperlinks and then hit Control single quote, which is the font color cycle, which cycles over to orange. Let's go over here and do the model check as well. Control single quote, and that's in orange also. Let's pop over now to the outputs page. One of the things we're going to want to change right here is this global units marker. Let's hit Control single quote, just like that. And why did we change it? Well, we want to draw people's attention to it. If the model they're putting this into is not in US dollar thousands, then they'll want to make sure that they change this particular label. Let's also go down here and change the enterprise value with Control single quote, because that's going to connect to the model tab. Now let's pop down here to this data table, and we're going to change this top left corner just like that, and also the contents of the data table right here. Now, why did we make those last two changes? Well, the top left corner here, we made it orange as a reminder that the user may want to change that to white font to hide it, since it doesn't need to be seen. And also the contents in here, we put those in orange because when Macabacus is going to paste these, they will get pasted as values. So this is a reminder to reconnect or turn on the data table functionality. So let's pop over to the inputs page now and continue marking these useful orange connections, starting with this global units marker right here in orange, and finally the year right here, 2023. We already discussed the reasons for making the global units marker orange, but here, the reason we're making 2023 orange is because it may connect to other parts of the model, or we may want to bring attention to it because someone may want to roll the model forward to a new year. Now, it took a little time to put those orange markers in, but it was well worth it. This is going to ensure that if we're inserting these schedules far into the future, we remember exactly where all the connections are. And the other thing that it does is going to be helpful for other users. Remember, if we're sharing these model schedules and pushing them out across our organization, anyone that downloads them now will know where all the connections lie by looking for those orange markers. Now we have the first three tabs completely isolated and totally marked, so they're ready to be connected by anyone. Now what we're going to do in the next video is talk about the model tab. It's going to be a little bit more involved. Not only are we going to need to isolate it, but we're also going to have to look at the model tab closely. There's 4 schedules there. There might be connections between the schedules. So we're going to need to disconnect each schedule and get them ready to upload as well. We'll see you there. So we're at a stage now where we've completely finished with the first 3 tabs in this financial model, and they're all ready to be uploaded. We're going to turn our attention now to the model tab. We want to quickly review the structure, why we prefer it, and then get started on isolating that tab, and then also isolating the individual schedules within the model tab. Let's jump in and get started. The first thing to notice about this model tab is that it has a vertical structure. In fact, there are 4 schedules stacked on top of one another in this tab. And we always prefer building with a vertical structure. Why? It's really fast to build that way. It's easy to connect just simply upwards and downwards and putting the linkages in place. It's also very, very easy for others to audit a vertically linked model. So first up, what we want to do is we want to use the auto color functionality in Macabacus. Let's tap Control F1 just to open our ribbon. We're going to go up to the Macabacus section of the ribbon. Here under Format and Color, you would remember there's the auto color section down here. This time we're going to use auto color sheet, and you can see the shortcut here is Control Alt S. So let's back out and run that really quickly for this entire sheet. All right, now if you could please follow along with us and also auto color your sheet by hitting Control Alt S, just like this. Now we can see there's a lot of green font indicating worksheet links on this tab. So here's a quick little pro tip that could save you a ton of time. We know that every one of these green worksheet links is actually a connection point that will need to be connected to other parts of the model. And we're marking these orange. So we could go through right now while these are green and flip the color over to orange. And that way we've marked all of these connection points. Let's do that. So let's head over to here where we see the green font right there and hit Control single quote, which changes it to orange. Now we can highlight the other green font colors and use the F4 key to repeat the last command. So we're just going down through this particular page and we're marking all green font as orange font, just like that. Now that we're done the revenue schedule, here's a quick way to get to the cost schedule. Let's hold down the Control key and use the left arrow to get into column A, and then do Control down and we'll hit a stop that we put on the cost schedule. Now we tap the scroll lock key and use the down button to bring the cost schedule up into view. Tap the scroll lock once more and we're ready to go. As we can see on this part of the cost schedule, there's no green worksheet links. Let's use Control down to check the bottom of the cost schedule here, the summary area, also no green links. So Control down using the scroll lock gets the income statement up just like this. So there's a bunch of green worksheet links here, but it shouldn't take long with Macabacus shortcuts. Let's go across and select the first group here, Control single quote, and then we're going to use the F4 key to repeat all the way down this income statement like this, and we're all done. Now down to the last schedule. So Control left arrow a couple times, Control down, tap scroll lock, bring the DCF schedule into place, tap scroll lock again, and we're all set. So let's zoom out just a bit so we can see everything. Control Alt minus will get everything into view. We can see that there's actually some orange font down here indicating partial inputs. Let's investigate. If we open those up, we see there's a hard-coded 12 and a 31, which is okay, and it's consistent all the way across. So let's use the blue-black toggle just to quickly change that to black font. Now what we want to do is just finish up by changing these worksheet links, which are green, over to orange. So let's select these across like this, Control single quote to change them to orange. There's a few more over here, and we'll use the F4 key to repeat the last command and get these ones done just like this. All set. Now that we've marked all of these worksheet links in orange to indicate the connections, we're free to break those links now. The way that we're going to do that is by isolating the worksheet. And you may remember if we tap the Alt key, you can see it right up here. It's going to be Alt 6. So let's tap Alt 6 and we can see, are we sure? We're going to click OK. And it says here, it's confirmed it's made 76 replacements, formulas with values. Perfect. So using the auto color sheet functionality, we quickly found all the worksheet links, switched them over to orange to mark them for other users, and then we isolated the worksheet. This was super fast using Macabacus tools. The next video, we're going to start to talk about how to find the connections between each of these 4 schedules on this tab, start breaking them apart. We'll see you there. So we have the model tab completely isolated at this point, but what we're going to do in this video is start to look for connections between the schedules, starting with the revenue schedule. We're going to do this by searching for precedent cells. Let's dive in and get started. So let's start off by opening up our ribbon with Control F1. And recall if we were using a native copy of Excel and we went up into the formula section of the ribbon here, we would have the ability to trace precedents, but that would only trace one cell at a time. Over here in the Macabacus section of the ribbon under Trace, we have the ability to show all precedents, which is incredibly powerful here with Control Alt left square bracket, and then we can clear up the arrows really quickly with Control Alt \. Let's get started on using some of these shortcuts. Control F1 quickly just to close up that ribbon again. So what we're going to do here is select the entire revenue schedule all the way down to the bottom. Control Alt left square bracket to show all precedents. This can look a little busy when it first comes up because there's a lot of blue arrows, but what we're looking for are blue arrows that stretch outside of this range or link across to other cells. We don't see any here. They're all self-contained within this area. So now we can hit Control Alt \, to clear the arrows. So in this case, we checked all the precedents and there were no precedent cells outside of this area. This means that this schedule has effectively been isolated. It was likely that there were a lot of links back to the inputs page, but those were taken care of when we ran isolate worksheet a moment ago. So we've marked most of the critical connection points in the schedule as well, but there's one more that we'd like to mark. It's right up here. the global units marker. Let's tap Control single quote just to put that in orange to draw it to everyone's attention. So this revenue schedule is now completely isolated. We've marked all the connection points in orange and it's completely ready to be uploaded. We're all done. In the next video, we're going to hop into the cost schedule and make sure that's ready to go as well. See you there. As you can see, we're all set up here in the cost schedule, and we're going to use a similar approach for this schedule that we did with the revenue schedule. We're going to select it. We want to search for all precedents and see if there's any precedent cells that we need to break. Let's get started. So what we want to do here is select the entire cost schedule right down to the bottom like this. Control Alt left square bracket to show all precedents. Now, when these blue arrows come up, remember, can be a little bit overwhelming. What we're looking for are places like right here at the top where the arrows are extending outside of the range. And if we scroll up a little bit like this, we can actually see the connection points. There's one connected here to the dates, another one there to inflation, and down at the bottom, we can see a connection point here to sales volume. So what we're going to need to do is go back down to the cost schedule just like this and think about how to break the connections that exist in these dates, the sales volume, and the inflation. So the first thing that we can do is clear all the arrows with Control Alt / like this. Let's head up to the revenue schedule here and take a look at these dates. In fact, these dates would be really nice to copy down because these have already been isolated. So let's do a copy of the revenue schedule and then head on down to the cost schedule here. And what we're going to do is just do a simple paste across the cost schedule. We're also going to do this down on the income statement just to save us some time so that these can be isolated here as well. Now let's go back up to the cost schedule and continue our work. Now we want to turn our attention down here to sales volume and inflation. If we were running just a native copy of Excel, what we would need to do with these figures is do a copy, paste special values. But Macabacus has a function that's completely dedicated exactly for this use case. Let's take a look. So what we're going to do is expand the ribbon with Control F1 and look up in the Macabacus section. Over under formulas, we can see under flatten, we have the ability to flatten a selection, which is Control Shift 3. This will effectively replace the formulas with values, and it will also auto color the selection for us. So let's escape out here and give that a shot. So let's quickly collapse the ribbon again. And now that we have these numbers selected right here, Control Shift 3 flattens the selection. Perfect. So let's do a quick check. If we pop into these cells with F2, we can see they're all values, and obviously they've all been colored as blue. Now that they're selected, let's mark them as orange since they're going to be connection points. So Control single quote puts them to orange really quickly. What we can also do now is go over here and highlight the global units marker and tap F4 to make that orange as well. So that was great. We'll have to remember that flatten selection tool from Macabacus, since it effectively is like a copy paste special values and auto color all in one. We have the cost schedule completely isolated now and it's marked for upload. Let's go ahead to the next video and check out the income statement. We'll see you there. As you can see, we're all set up here on the income statement, and we're going to be reusing some of those Macabacus shortcuts that we've been learning in the past few videos, which is great because we're getting familiar with them. We're picking up a little speed and momentum along the way. Let's get started and get this schedule done. So let's kick things off here by selecting the entire income statement and hitting Show All Precedents, which is Control Alt left square bracket. We can see the arrows extending up outside of this range. And if we investigate, there's one right here with total costs. And then just using the page up a couple of times, we can see another one right here with revenue. Let's pop back down to the income statement now, use the scroll lock key to bring that back into view, and then Control Alt / to clear the arrows. Hopefully you're starting to get fast with some of these keyboard shortcuts. So let's go down here and select the revenue and costs across like this. We're going to flatten selection with Control Shift 3, and that's done. And now we want to change the color with Control single quote over to orange. Now we can go over to the global units marker and tap F4 to also change that color to orange. Super quick. So as we've mentioned before, it's never a bad idea to check your work. So what we're going to do here is select the entire income statement, and just check for precedents. So Control Alt left square bracket to show all precedents, and we can see precedents, but there are none outside of the range that we're selecting. So it's perfect. It's been isolated. So now we can clear the arrows with Control Alt backslash. We're all set. This schedule looks great. It's completely isolated and it's been perfectly marked, so it'll be easy for other people to assemble it when they're inserting it into their financial models. We only have one schedule left. Let's jump ahead to the next video and get that DCF schedule all completed. So we're down on the DCF schedule now, and we're starting to get familiar and comfortable with some of these really powerful Macabacus tools. So let's use some of them again here and see if we can pick up a little speed and momentum through this last schedule. So what we want to do, select the entire DCF schedule right down to the bottom. Control Alt left square bracket to show all precedents. And again, we can see some precedents just up above. Let's tap the page up button, and now we can see one connection here to EBITDA and the forecast period, and one connection here to this year. Let's pop back down to the DCF schedule and flatten these out and get them colored properly. So what we want to do next is hit Control Alt backslash to clear the arrows. And we want to go down here and select the EBITDA across this range, Control Shift 3 to flatten that selection, and then down here and select this year, Control Shift 3 again to also flatten that selection. You're probably getting nice and familiar with these shortcuts, and it's always a good idea to have a little bit of repetition to help memorize these and get comfortable with them. So what we want to do while we have this year selected is use the font color cycle. So Control single quote, we'll put that into orange, and then right up here to EBITDA, select these, hit F4, that one's orange, and then we can go across to the global units marker, tap F4 again, and we're all done. With the Macabacus shortcuts, it's really easy to check our work as well. Let's just select this entire schedule and just run show all precedents really quickly, Control Alt left square bracket, lots of blue arrows, but again, none outside of this range. So Control Alt backslash to clear the arrows. Great work. We were able to get this DCF schedule done really fast using those Macabacus shortcuts. The next video, we're going to give you some quick tips that you can use to check through these schedules one last time before we get them ready and start uploading them into Macabacus. We'll see you there.